America's first astronauts returned home, they brought back a startling view of our planet. Whirling through space, Earth appeared beautiful, majestic, and alone, like a fragile spaceship charting a hazardous journey through the universe. Just how hazardous has been demonstrated by the recent work of biologists. Studying different parts of the world, these scientists have shown how delicate life on Earth remains and how fragile the balance is between living things and their environment. The Earth is about 8,000 miles in diameter, but biologists say that the portion of the planet where life can exist is only about 13 miles. Called the biosphere, this part of the Earth includes the atmosphere, about 6 miles high, a layer of soil and bodies of water going as deep as 7 miles. For billions of years, scientists tell us, life has existed in this area on Earth. How life has continued for this length of time is the subject of ecology. The science of ecology concerns the relationships of living things with their environment on Earth. People who specialize in this science are called ecologists. To better understand Earth's ecology, we will study the general characteristics of different land and water environments and the relationship of plants and animals to their environment. Then, we will consider several important cycles in nature that keep vital chemicals flowing through the environment. We will see how organisms interact in ecosystems, discuss how they are classified by the way they get their food, and learn about food chains and food webs, and see how important balance is in an ecosystem. Then, we will discuss ecological succession, the process of renewal and change that takes place constantly in the environment, and view the Earth's major biomes, parts of the world that have distinctive climates and forms of life. An ecosystem is an area or region where living things interact with their surroundings. An ecosystem includes all the plants, animals, soil, water, air, temperatures, light, noise, and everything else, both living and non-living, with which an organism interacts. For example, this aquarium with fish is an ecosystem. Other examples of ecosystems include tropical rainforests, the sea, deserts, grasslands, polar regions, and cities. All the living and non-living things in an ecosystem are interdependent. That is, they depend on one another. An ecosystem can be as small as a tiny garden or as big as a jungle. What kind of ecosystem do you live in? Do you live on a farm? In a small village? Or perhaps a city? What kinds of animals and plants live in your ecosystem? Write a description of your ecosystem in a few words. List some of the major living and non-living things with which you interact. You have 15 seconds to do this. Depending on where you live, you may have described any one of a great number of ecosystems, along with animals and plants that you're familiar with. A forest is an ecosystem with a variety of living and non-living things. List 3 living and 3 non-living things in a forest ecosystem. You have 15 seconds to do this. For a forest ecosystem, under living things, you might have listed such organisms as fruits, trees, birds, insects, and animals like foxes and deer. Under non-living things, you might have listed the soil, rocks, water, or dead trees. The living and non-living things in the forest all interact. For example, living things, trees and other plants, and birds and other animals all need water. And these living things recycle the water back to the environment. Living things interact with each other too. Deer eat grass and leaves and other vegetation. And the plants and animals all use water and are sheltered by trees. So the living and non-living things in this ecosystem interact and are interdependent. They depend on each other. In describing an ecosystem, ecologists use several terms. They refer to the group of living organisms in an ecosystem as a community. For example, in a forest ecosystem, trees, animals, birds, and insects make up a community. And in a community, the same type of living thing makes up a population. For instance, all the squirrels in a forest make up a population of squirrels. Every member of a community needs a place to live, where it can get food and shelter. Ecologists call this place a habitat. In the forest, many birds live and nest in the branches of a tree. The branches are their habitat. In a habitat, every organism pursues a way of life which is called a niche. An organism's niche includes how much water it needs, what it eats, where it lives, when and how it reproduces, and other such factors that make up its life. A beaver, for example, will build a dam across a stream in a forest. The beaver's dam helps fulfill the requirements of its niche. The construction and completion of the dam affects the entire ecosystem. So the ecosystem is the basic unit of ecology. An ecosystem includes living things and their surroundings. There are many kinds of ecosystems. An ecosystem can be as small as this magnified drop of pond water, or as large as an ocean. Living things in an ecosystem are a community, while the same type of organism makes up a population that lives in a habitat and has a niche, that is, a way of life that the species pursues within the habitat. In any ecosystem, you can see a close relationship between living things and the non-living environment. In a balanced ecosystem, the material needs for life are constantly recycled. Ecologists point out that organisms need certain chemicals to survive. These chemicals move in cycles through the living and non-living parts of the environment. All living things, for instance, need water. And water is recycled continually between the surface of the Earth and the atmosphere. Most water on Earth lies in our oceans, lakes, and ponds. Through the process of evaporation, surface water in these bodies is heated by the sun and becomes a vapor. Rising into the atmosphere, this water vapor accumulates in clouds to eventually return to the planet's surface in the form of rain or snow, a process known as condensation. Once returned to Earth or used by plants and animals, the cycle starts again, with water evaporating into the atmosphere. In another important cycle, oxygen and carbon dioxide are circulated through the biosphere. You, like most other living things, need oxygen to survive. Through the life process of respiration, you take in oxygen. Some of it is combined with food molecules in your cells to release energy, and then you exhale carbon dioxide. The Earth's atmosphere contains about 20% oxygen and less than 1% carbon dioxide. Scientists say this delicate balance has existed for millions of years on Earth. But how then is this balance maintained? To find out, think about this question. If billions of living organisms continually release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, what would be the effect? If all of us continued to release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, the gas would gradually increase to dangerous levels. Why do you think this doesn't happen? Because of green plants. Green plants, that is, plants with chlorophyll, use the carbon dioxide with energy from the sun to produce food through the process of photosynthesis. As a result of photosynthesis, green plants release oxygen into the atmosphere. So the two gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, are continually recycled by respiration in plants and animals, and by photosynthesis in green plants. The circulation of nitrogen in the biosphere is another one of nature's cycles. Nitrogen is a major element found in proteins that are needed for the growth and development of cells of all living things. The air in our atmosphere consists of nearly 78% nitrogen, but the nitrogen can't be used in its gaseous form. Special nitrogen-fixing bacteria, however, are found in the roots of some plants and are capable of changing the nitrogen in the air into nitrates, a form of nitrogen easily used by most plants. When people or animals eat these plants, or eat other animals that eat plants, they get the nitrogen needed for their cells. Also, as part of the cycle, when animals and plants die, their bodies decay and return nitrogen to the soil. Other special bacteria also break down nitrates, releasing the nitrogen back into the air, completing the nitrogen cycle. To review then, the material needs of life are constantly recycled by nature. Chemicals needed for life move in cycles through the living and non-living parts of the environment. Examples of cycles important to life are the water cycle, the oxygen-carbon dioxide cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. Ecologists observe the many interactions of living things in an ecosystem. They see how organisms live in balance with each other and with their environment. One way in which ecologists classify organisms is according to how they get their food. Green plants are different from other living things because through photosynthesis, they not only release oxygen, they make food. With chlorophyll, they capture the energy from the sun to produce glucose. Because of this, plants are considered producers in an ecosystem. The next category in an ecosystem is consumers, who eat the plants, or may eat each other. There are three different kinds of consumers. Herbivores mainly eat plants. Carnivores are another type of consumer. They eat other animals, mainly herbivores. Finally, omnivores eat both animals and plants. Besides producers and consumers in an ecosystem, there are decomposers, a group of organisms responsible for breaking down the remains of plants and animals that have died. Mushrooms and bacteria are among the decomposers that return substances like nitrogen to the soil and water. Later, these substances are used by other plants to make food. In an ecosystem, then, nature has established a delicate balance between living things. Ecologists use a food chain to describe how each form of life is dependent upon the other. Food chains show how food energy goes from one living thing to another. In such a food chain, Green plants, that is, producers, are on the first level. On the second level are animals that eat plants. And on the third level are animals who consume animals that have already eaten plants. An example of a food chain might find a plant being eaten by a rabbit, which in turn is eaten by a coyote. Of course, there are many different food chains, and whenever you eat, you take your place at some level in one of them. Let's see where you fit in this three-part food chain. Here we have three parts of a food chain. A human eating beef. B, grass. And C, a cow. What is the correct arrangement of these three levels in a food chain? The first level in this food chain is the producer, the plant. B, grass. Then the next level is the consumer, C, the cow, which eats the grass. And the next level is the consumer, A, the human eating the beef from the cow. In most ecosystems, there are many food chains connected with each other. Ecologists call these interacting food chains a food web. Whether an ecosystem is a small pond or part of a forest, organisms must get food, water, and shelter from their environment. To get these materials and survive, living things struggle with their environment and with each other. In fact, among living things, most relationships are based on competition. Animals, for example, compete for food, and plants compete for sunlight. Such competition helps establish a natural balance among populations. What do you think would happen if you were to introduce a new animal into an environment? Write a one-sentence answer to this. You have 15 seconds to do this. If you were to introduce a new animal into an environment, you might upset the balance of nature, because the new animal might dominate other animals that have developed and competed over a long period of time. This happened in Australia when early settlers introduced rabbits in the 18th century. With little competition from enemies, the rabbits grew in number quickly, eating so much plant life that cattle herds faced starvation. Finally, in order to save the cattle, scientists used a deadly virus to kill many of the rabbits. Predation, where animals kill other animals for food, is another relationship biologists say helps maintain the balance of nature. Here, a pride of lions stalked and killed a zebra. In this case, the lions are predators and the zebra is prey. To review then, ecologists can classify organisms in an ecosystem according to how they get their food. Described as producers, green plants make their own food. Consumers are the next category. They eat plants, or possibly each other. And decomposers transfer vital chemicals from dead plants and animals back into the soil and water. Biologists use food chains and food webs to show how food energy goes from one living thing to another. And they point out that competition and predation among organisms are two important ways that the balance of nature is maintained. In a balanced ecosystem, organisms continually interact to survive. Disturbing this balance can cause problems, and the entire balance of an ecological system can be upset by human actions. In Brazil and elsewhere, for example, settlers are burning rainforests to make areas more accessible. But at the same time as they clear the land for farming and living, they are ruining a valuable ecosystem. These fires are destroying some of the most varied plant and animal life on Earth. Natural disaster can also seriously disrupt the balance of nature. When Mount St. Helens, a volcano in the state of Washington, erupted in 1980, the lush green countryside was devastated for miles. But then, slowly, month by month, life renewed itself as plants, insects, and larger animals returned, and relationships among living things were gradually restored. This process of renewal and change takes place constantly in ecosystems. Over a period of time, lasting perhaps tens, hundreds, even thousands of years, organisms and communities replace each other. Ecologists call this process of change ecological succession. Through the years, one community of organisms replaces another until a climax community, that is, a relatively stable ecosystem, develops. So, for example, a lake may gradually fill in and become a swamp that over the years slowly loses water and turns into a meadow, which through time may then become a forest. The forest is a climax community because it is relatively stable and will not be readily replaced. To review then, over a period of time, organisms and communities replace each other. This process is called ecological succession. Through the years, one community of organisms replaces another until a climax community, a relatively stable ecosystem, develops. Ecological succession has been speeded up by human beings as they clear forests for homes and farming. An ecosystem is an area or region where living things interact with their environment. But on a larger scale, there are unique regions on Earth that have a specific climate and distinctive forms of life. Scientists divide these regions into areas they call biomes. Under this system, there are usually 6 land and 2 water biomes. Generally, on a land biome, the climate determines the type of plant and animal life. First, there are several forest biomes. The temperate deciduous or broadleaf forest biome covers much of the eastern United States and also much of Europe. In the temperate deciduous biome, most winters and summers are mild, and many common plants and grasses are found there, along with trees like oaks, maples, and hickories, and such animals as deer, bears, and wolves. Unfortunately, most of the world's broadleaf forests in the temperate deciduous biome have been destroyed in the rush to build cities and industry. Heading north, the broadleaf trees are replaced by evergreen or coniferous forests. This is the coniferous biome. We find the coniferous biome stretching across Alaska, Canada, and northern Asia. Here, the winters are cold and long. The trees in the coniferous biome include pines, firs, and spruces. In contrast, the third forest biome, the tropical rainforest biome, has hot weather year-round, and there is daily rainfall. Located along the Amazon River in South America, and also in Central Africa and in Southern Asia, the tropical rainforest biome has thousands of species of plant and animal life. In the Amazon and in other areas of the tropical rainforest biome, people have attempted to clear the rainforest for farming, but with little success since the soil is not fertile. Land already clear is found in the grassland biome. Here, food grasses such as wheat, rye, barley, and oats grow easily. Where on Earth do you think the largest grasslands are located? Africa has the largest grasslands in the world, with other grassland regions located in western North America and South America. Elephants, zebras, and lions roam the wilder grasslands in Africa. In North America, much of the grassland biome is now farms and ranches, where cattle and sheep graze, and many basic food products are grown. The desert biome comprises about 1/7 of the Earth. Large parts of the desert biome are located in North Africa, Western North America, and Western Asia. In the desert, conditions are extreme. Temperatures can range from more than 130 degrees Fahrenheit in the day to 40 degrees Fahrenheit at night. Plants and animals have adapted to the extreme heat and little rain. In some desert areas, irrigation has proven successful in producing food crops. To the north is what scientists call the tundra biome. Bordering on the Arctic Ocean around the North Pole, this region is very cold and dry, like a frigid desert. Few animals venture here, where the ground is permanently frozen and there are shrubs instead of trees. While each of the 6 land biomes is important, nearly 70% of the Earth is covered with water. Together, the marine and freshwater biomes contain more living things than are found in all the land biomes. The marine biome is comprised of oceans, with water containing about 3.5% salt. Most marine organisms live near the surface or shore, but there are also some which live in deep water. Tiny one-celled algae known as plankton are unique water organisms. They serve as a major food supply for fish, while at the same time producing more than 70% of all of the oxygen in our atmosphere. The freshwater biome has many distinctive living things. It consists of bodies of still water like lakes and ponds, and running water like streams and rivers. To review then, biomes refer to unique regions on Earth that have a specific climate and distinct forms of life. There are 6 land and 2 water biomes. On a land biome, the climate generally determines the type of plant and animal life. The 2 water biomes contain more life forms than all the land biomes. The marine biome is comprised of the oceans. The freshwater biome consists of bodies of still water such as lakes and ponds, and running water like rivers and streams. During this program, we have discussed the relationship of plants and animals to their environment. We have looked at some important cycles in nature that keep vital chemicals flowing through the environment, and how organisms interact in an ecosystem. We have observed the process of ecological succession, when organisms and communities replace each other. And we have looked at the Earth's major biomes, parts of the world that have distinctive climates and forms of life. By understanding the environment of the Earth, people can make informed choices when doing things which might have an impact on the Earth's environment.